And there's more dry weather to come as we go through Wednesday itself for many. Again, some bright sunny skies before some wet weather pushes its way in on Thursday. Heaviest rain in the south. See you later.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm John Vincent. Severe delays in West Yorkshire. The M1 has been closed in both directions for a police incident between junction 40 Ossett and 41 Cargate. Diversions are signposted. Surrounding routes also looking very congested. And there's also severe delays in Lancashire. The M6 has been closed in both directions for an accident between junction 33 Lancaster South and 32 the Broughton interchange. Queuing traffic on the M60 clockwise in Manchester. That's between junction 10, the Trafford Centre, and 13 for Worsley. We're seeing slow traffic on the M42 southbound in Staffordshire. There's a lane closed there for a broken down vehicle and a fuel spillage at junction 10 for Tamworth. And long delays on the M5 southbound in Somerset due to a broken down lorry at junction 24 Bridgewater South, not helped by an earlier accident.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
£30,000 in cash has to be won. It's our biggest cash prize so far and it could be yours. Charles was a winner. Listen to what he says about winning the Great British Giveaway.
I'm Charles. I'm on £18,000 cash. It was just amazing, and as soon as it goes into your bank account, it just changed. It's a life-changing thing.
The next big winner could be you, with an extra £30,000 cash in your bank. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes. Thank you for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is Dewbs & Co. Coming up tonight, the head of America's Secret Service has been grilled at a hearing, and she said that the shooting of Trump was the most significant operational failure at the Secret Service in decades. Many calls now for her to step down. Should she? And speaking of stepping down, many people also saying that Joe Biden should as well. Your thoughts on all of that? And our Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has announced plans for skills in England now to be fixed and for it all to be run much better. Is that really what we need? And a report out today says that us citizens should be more involved in national policy. Think things like citizens' assemblies, etc. Would you support that? And would it perhaps build more trust in politics? And my favourite story of the day, quite frankly, antisocial behaviour. It's a blight, isn't it? But what we're going to do about it over in Grimsby, they are going to trial a system. Basically, they're going to blast out the rules of law and order every 15 minutes over loudspeakers. Is this a good idea or not? And will it make a blind bit of difference? All of that and more, but first, the 6 o'clock news headlines.
Michelle, thank you, and good evening to you. Well, as you've been hearing, the head of the US Secret Service has admitted that the attempt to assassinate Donald Trump was the most significant operational US Secret Service failure for decades. Kimberly Cheadle has been testifying before a congressional committee in an effort to explain herself following the attempt to kill Donald Trump last week. She was being questioned about the security lapses that allowed a lone rifleman to successfully take aim at Mr. Trump, saying that she accepts full responsibility for what went wrong.
The assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump on July 13th is the most significant operational failure of the Secret Service in decades, and I am keeping him and his family in my thoughts. The Secret Service's solemn mission is to protect our nation's leaders. On July 13th, we failed.
Meanwhile, financial donations to the US Democrats have surged after President Biden's announcement he's stepping down from the US presidential race. In an online statement yesterday, Joe Biden instead endorsed his VP, Kamala Harris, as his favourite for the president, but similar endorsements were significantly missing from former President Obama and prominent Democrat Nancy Pelosi. It comes after he faced increasing calls to step aside since his poor debate performance against Donald Trump last week. Well, here, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has praised Joe Biden.
A man who, during 5 decades of service, never lost touch with the concerns of working people and always put his country first. A true friend of the Labour movement, his presidency will leave a legacy that extends far beyond America to freedom and security on this continent.
Now, the Home Secretary has told the Commons today that the Rwanda scheme has cost the British taxpayer £700 million. Yvette Cooper described the migrant deterrence scheme as the most shocking waste of taxpayers' money she'd ever seen. She said she'd take urgent action to start clearing the asylum backlog in one simple change that she also said would save the taxpayer an estimated £7 billion over the next 10 years. That's after nearly 1,500 migrants arrived in the UK after a busy week of crossings in the English Channel. The Prime Minister has set out plans to cut reliance on foreign workers by improving skills training in England. It's called Skills England. It was a manifesto pledge from Labour and is designed to fix what they're describing as the fragmented and broken training system we have in the UK. In a speech, Sir Keir Starmer argued that a new approach is needed to reduce the need for immigration in key sectors. But the Conservatives have warned that the plans to redirect cash could, in fact, cut the number of apprenticeships on offer. Now, an 11-year-old girl has been left orphaned following a crash which killed 4 members of her family, as well as a motorcyclist and pillion passenger in West Yorkshire. Shane Roller, his partner Shannon Morgan and their daughters Lily and Ruby died on the A61 near Wakefield when their Ford Focus car was in collision with that motorbike. A fundraising page has been set up for 11-year-old Poppy, who was not in the car when it crashed. It has now reached over £70,000. The scene of the crash has remained closed. Police investigations are continuing. And Superintendent Alan Travis from West Yorkshire Police said it's an absolutely tragic incident resulting in the loss of 6 lives. Now, Wales's Health Minister, Eluned Morgan, has announced she's running to replace the outgoing First Minister, Vaughan Gething, who lasted just 4 months in the job. Baroness Morgan, seen here in these pictures, if you're watching on television, on the left, will be standing on what they're calling a joint unity ticket with the Rural Affairs Minister, Hugh Arunca-Davies, who would become the Deputy First Minister. They've received a groundswell of support from across the Labour benches in Wales, including from Mr Gething's rival in the last leadership race, Jeremy Miles. And just lastly, the Prince and Princess of Wales have shared a new photograph of Prince George to mark his 11th birthday. The image was taken by his mum, Princess Catherine, and is posted on Kensington Palace's social media accounts. It's a black and white shot. If you're watching on TV, you can see that, showing the future king smiling, wearing a very smart white shirt and dark blazer. Happy birthday to George. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Polly Middlehurst. I'm back in an hour. See you then.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much for that, Polly. I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm with you till 7 o'clock tonight. I looked on at that picture there of Prince George in awe, because I don't know about your children, but I don't think I would ever be able to get an image of my child looking as poised and as sophisticated and all the rest of it as that. Alongside me, I've got former Labour advisor and political commentator Joe Phillips and the former Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Ben Habib. Would you ever manage to get a shot of your children looking as well presented as that?
Well, I think that's manicured, isn't it? He's been made to sit still and he's been done up.
But they do wear these rather sort of old-fashioned outfits, don't they? I mean, they dress like little grown-ups.
Yeah,
they
but
have
what
to,
do
I
they do?
suppose.
How do you bribe your child to sit as
One
well
day
as that
you'll
and
be
look
king.
as good? This is right. Yeah, but I'm not sure. Is that a positive? Is that enough to make a child sit still? It'd make me run for the hills, I could tell you. Anyway, I am with you until 7 o'clock tonight. Your thoughts on all the goings on? I've got a lot I want to talk to you about tonight's Secret Service. I'll come on to that. Joe Biden. I also want to talk to you about a story that caught my eye in Grimsby. They're going to be trialling, blasting out the laws on that kind of big mega speakers on the streets of Grimsby to try and tackle antisocial behaviour. What do you make to that? I find it absolutely fascinating. Would love to know your thoughts on that. You can get in touch all the usual ways. gbnews.com/yoursay on the website. You can email me gbviews@gbnews.com, or of course you can tweet or X me. Before I get into my roster, I will just tell you this. I thought of you last night. I did. I was on a campsite. I was camping, which is why I wasn't here on Friday. And it was our final night of the trip. We was all gathered around a campfire, and the organisers asked for suggestions of songs to sing. And a couple of people suggested "Come By Our Ben." And do you know what the response was?
What?
The organisers tried to each other and said it was too religious, and we couldn't sing it because it could offend people.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, what would Ben Habib say?
Yeah.
Well,
Ben
I can tell
Habib
you
was
something.
here.
I can't see Ben Habib in a tent.
Can you not?
No.
I was talking about the end of cultural Christianity just the other day, you know, whether or not you believe in Christianity. We're turning our back on our whole...
Well, yeah, and that's why I was thinking about you. I was thinking if he was around this campfire now, I don't think Ben Habib would have any of that.
Big job. All I can say to you.
Anyway, we went for Gingang Ghoulie instead. We did that one. Anyway, look, let's talk about the big news of the day, not about my campfire. Look, the director of the Secret Service, Kimberly Cheetle, she's been grilled over in Congress. Listen.
The assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump on July 13th is the most significant operational failure of the Secret Service in decades, and I am keeping him and his family in my thoughts. The Secret Service's solemn mission is to protect our nation's leaders. On July 13th, we failed.
You did indeed. Many people now say that she should have to step down. What do you make to all this, Ben Habib? It was really quite shocking.
Well, without wishing to go through the events, I suppose you've got to go through the events, which no doubt people have done ad nauseum. There was clearly a massive breach of security on the day. These high points, which should have been policed and cordoned off or had eyes on them at least, were allowed to go unchecked. The people in the crowd saw this guy getting his rifle ready. He had a high-powered rifle. It wasn't a sporting rifle, not one you can, get out and put together easily. It requires a bit of effort. And then it took 2 or 3 minutes, and he let off, 4 or 5 shots before he was taken out. I mean, the whole thing was a disaster. And then I'm not a security expert, but the way Trump went down and then emerged standing proud with his head presented again in case, if there'd been another shooter. He was presented by the security services, in my mind. They were around him, but he was standing proud above them. The whole thing was a disaster, and whether or not Cheetle should resign is really not for me to say. I don't know the inner workings of the American Secret Service. But, massive breach of security.
I just find it absolutely fascinating, because when anything kind of bad happens, tragic, everyone pops up and everyone seems to think they're like an armchair expert in whatever subject it is. Notwithstanding that, you really don't need to be an armchair expert to have seen lots of the footage where people were literally filming the shooter and saying to the police, there's a guy up there, he's got a gun, he's got a gun. You really don't need to know anything really about inner workings to know that that was completely catastrophic failure.
Exactly, and apparently didn't the killers the shooter's father, didn't he contact the police as well sometime before? I mean, I don't know enough about the relationship between the Secret Service and the police. You know, that the police can't move without the Secret Service saying so. But, I mean, it does seem, as you point out, Michelle, if people were going, look, you know, he's up there, he's bear crawling on the roof and all the rest of it, why did they let it happen? And
why was the roof unchecked?
Well, exactly, yeah.
Indeed. Anyway, so there's calls for hair to stand down, but I can tell you now there's also calls for Joe Biden to stand down as well. Everyone will know by now that he's not going to run in the next election. Also, Kamala Harris, she's been speaking out as well today. Let's take a listen.
Our president, Joe Biden, wanted to be here today. He is feeling much better and recovering fast. Joe Biden's legacy of accomplishment over the past 3 years is unmatched in modern history. In one term, he has already, yes, you may clap. In one term, he has already surpassed the legacy of most presidents who have served 2 terms in office.
Now, Ben, there'll be some people tuning in that are going, oh, Michelle, there's so much going on in the UK. Why are you focusing on all of this US stuff? But actually, what is going on in the UK will have a huge potential impact here. Sorry, in the US will have a huge potential impact here in the UK. Keir Starmer, he was speaking out today, and the first load of questions to him was directly about this as well. Joe Biden, should he go?
So, I mean, he absolutely should go. And any president who hands in the nomination de facto admits he has to go. And the case was, you know, unanswerable, I think, for him to go. What is remarkable is that he hasn't left office now. You know, if he's not fit to stand for election in November, he's presumably not fit to
But we don't know the reasons why he's
right
not
now.
standing, do we?
Well, I think it's pretty clear, isn't it,
Well,
Michelle? Again, without wishing to, you know, jump in, he's incapable of holding a coherent conversation,
I think that
let alone govern the country.
We're surmising. He didn't say in his letter, you know, I am withdrawing my name from this nomination because of illness or because my doctors have told me to. He just said, I'm stepping back. Now, you know, the cynics amongst us and those of us who follow elections closely would say he's looked at the numbers and he knows he can't beat Biden, can't beat Trump. But, you know, it is...
But that's no reason to give up the nomination.
Well, but it might be for him.
Well, that's an incredibly cavalier approach
it might
to
be. It might
the
not
opposition.
Be. I wonder whether once the Democrats have chosen who their nominee is, that he then might make a decision about, OK, he doesn't need to stand down. They've got a vice...
He has to stood down.
No, but you mean standing down from the presidency.
So he's taken his name off. He doesn't want to be the nominee anymore, but he's, of course, still in office.
Yeah, we know he's
stay in office till Jan.
And there are people who say he should therefore stand down from the presidency. Well, why? He's got a vice president. That's what she was doing.
Well, let's remind ourselves then what's caused a lot of this controversy, because a lot of it, many people will say that things started to go wrong for Biden during that debate. I think it was about the 27th of June. Things like this were occurring. What?
Eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden.
On the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
And I mean, I've got to say, look at this one as well. You'll be familiar with this mix-up as well.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin.
See, I've got to say, I'm laughing because you're laughing, Ben. Pack it in.
It's beyond debate, isn't it?
I've always maintained, I've never changed, that I've always felt uncomfortable about this, because there is a mocking of the decline going on, and it makes me so uncomfortable because I feel like I'm watching almost like an elderly relative cognitively decline.
But, I mean, there's a human
stage.
aspect to feeling sympathy, of course, and we shouldn't be unsympathetic. But he is the president of the free world. He's the president of the most powerful country on earth. He has to have his wits about him. He can't get on stage and forget who the president
hang on a minute. I mean, I think, you know, there is
Ukraine is.
There is a point.
Caught in a war.
I mean, I've just mixed up Biden and Trump when we were speaking earlier. You know, you can do that.
But Jo, you're not running the US of A.
No, I know I'm not. I'm not. But I think, you know, we're focusing on Biden. We're not focusing on the absolute balderdash that comes out of the mouth of Donald Trump. You know, who talks about Hannibal Lecter as though he's a real person and a personal friend.
I just say?
Hang on a minute, because I just want to make the point, or go back to Michelle's point. I mean, I watched my dad die, and he had Alzheimer's and dementia, and my mother's in a care home with dementia. It is, as many people watching this and listening to this will know, it is the most appalling disease. It robs you of everything that you knew about that person, and it robs them of their dignity. And I think, you know, one of the things that's hardest to deal with, and this is the assumption that that is what he's suffering from, which, of course, we don't know.
Well, he's got a cognitive dysfunction.
He's got a cognitive decline, but we don't know. But let us assume that that is the thing. And one of the things that happens to people with Alzheimer or dementia is that they have moments of lucidity, and then, you know, and we are into, and luckily somebody has done it, you've got to take the car keys away, which has now happened.
And that then begs the question why he's still in office, doesn't it?
Because he's got a vice president and he's got people around him. If he
So you're saying so someone with cognitive difficulties could be the president of the United States of America? I just don't buy that. He's
Donald Trump standing. I mean, I would like to see the focus on him.
But hold on, because that's completely different. If someone's got a medical condition,
but we don't know that.
That's why I said
it's pretty clear, isn't it? He's got a medical condition.
One assumes.
Or he's so intellectually challenged. It's one or the other.
Well, yeah, we assume, but we don't know.
You see, one of the things that I do feel has been going on is you see stuff with your own eyes and you watch kind of exchanges like that, and they're uncomfortable, they're not nice to watch. But then when you're seeing someone decline, then we're constantly being almost like gaslit in a way, because when people are flagging concerns and saying, look, this person, there's something not quite right here, then you're being told all the time we're being manipulated and that what we're seeing isn't real and so on and so forth. And it's pretty damn insulting, actually. And I don't understand why the loved ones of Joe Biden has put him through this. Why would you not have been in his ear trying to, encourage Dad or husband or whatever?
And I think that's a really good question, Michelle. And I think, there are a lot of fingers have been pointing at Jill Biden over the last few months, and certainly since that dreadful debate. And she's been painted as a sort of Lady Macbeth figure. That why was she not saying to him, look, sweetie, the game's up, it's time to withdraw gracefully?
But the bigger debate for me, by the way, he's gone. He's not. Well, he's gone in the future. Whether or not he should go now, I kind of agree reluctantly with you that it probably makes no difference. I personally would get rid of him if he's not able to stand for election. But can I just move on from that? The bigger debate here is Kamala Harris effectively circumventing all the, which I suspect is going to happen, all the normal processes to get the Democratic nomination through the back door, symptomatic of the way the Conservative Party started acting in the last few days in its office. And people now saying we can't challenge her nomination because she's I hate this expression, person of colour, and it would be seen to be all blooming awful if someone put their hat in the ring. And also that anyone is fearful of challenging her because if she loses the election, as she likely is, they'll then blame them for it. I mean, the whole thing has become a bit of a charade, hasn't it?
Has it? You tell me at home, what do you think about that? Also, I want to talk to you about skills in England. That's what Keir Starmer wanted to talk about today. He reckons he's got a plan to fix it. Of course, immigration is the response that many will give to that. I want to talk to you about all of that, plus antisocial behaviour and how to fix it. I'll see you in 2.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Now, time for the best part of the show, our Greatest Britain, where we share amazing people who do amazing things. And this week, that is Dr. Leo Cheng and Reverend Hilary Cheng.
Well, Dr. Chen regularly serves as a volunteer surgeon aboard the Mercy ships in West Africa and has recently served his 17th mission aboard the ships. He volunteers with his wife, Reverend Hilary Cheng, a Methodist minister in the UK.
Thank you for joining us, and what a privilege. So just briefly explain, what are Mercy ships?
Well, Mercy ships provide world-class surgery on the ship, and the ship then sails to these
poorest of the poor country because there's no infrastructure to get road or rail there. And we offer free surgery and also education, training of medical staff, and partner with the local or the host nation to build up their surgical and anaesthetic services.
So how long have you been travelling West Africa? You go on all these different ships, different ports, and you treat the needy and the vulnerable. How long have you both been doing this?
20 years.
20 years?
Just over 20 years.
And you take the time to do this out of your own holiday from work. Why do you do it?
Well, because I'm indebted to the education in this country with all the qualification I get. And NHS is great. I love the NHS because without NHS, we see cases that we see in the low-income country. And I want to make use of my hand to help those people who have no way of helping themselves. Because the tumours, the deformities, not just a physical ailment, but it's being ostracised and die early, commit suicide because they've been ostracised by their family.
When you're on the ship, you are seeing the very worst that the country can offer. I find it a great privilege to work alongside these people.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Isabel Webster. Thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm with you till 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, Ben Habib and Joe Phillips remain. Now, so Keir Starmer, of course, he wanted just to talk about this today. He was grilled about the American stuff, but let's look at what he wanted us all to be focused on our conversations this evening. Listen.
Another marker of the future, with the launch of a new organisation that we hope will transform not just how we train our young people and adults, but also the relationship between business and your education system. A plan to make sure that we're training young people not just for any business, but for the businesses that exist in their communities, the skills that you and they need to take each other forward.
So, of course, there's many things behind this. Many people are saying if Labour are going to reduce the dependency on migration, well, how are you going to do it? Perhaps this is one of the answers.
Well, I can't fault the initiative. Of course, the initiative's great, bringing skills back to British population. I've seen in my own lifetime how we've given up skill after skill after skill. You know, I'm in property and in the building process, we've just given it all up, and soon we won't be able to build buildings because it'll all be done with Meccano pre-designs and, you know, three-dimensional technology and stuff, which will prefab houses and they'll just be put together and they'll all be blooming awful to behold and live in. So I'm a big believer in bringing skills back, but we've got to remember it was the Labour Party that abolished the polytechnics and upgraded them all to universities, got rid of perfectly valid, useful degrees which gave you proper skills that you could use in the real world and replace them with, you know, all these Mickey Mouse degrees that we discuss or have discussed on this programme, apart from in other places. And I'd like to see how this works out, whether it is just another virtue signalling move by the Labour government to give the impression that they're doing something, or whether it is a genuine effort to do it. But it has to also come hand in hand with reforming the tax system. If you want the kinds of skills that we need to operate as a country, plumbers, builders, you know, I'm speaking from personal experience because of the industry that I'm involved in, you've got to get rid of IR35. You've got to make it a pleasant environment for people to be sole traders. You've got to make it worth their while to do it. You've got to increase, for example, the VAT threshold from the £93,000 per annum that it's set at to 150,000 minimum. You know, it's not a one policy step that's going to fix our broken skills, our absence of skills. We've got to have a holistic approach to it.
And I'm sure they would argue that that is indeed what is coming our way. Jo, what do you make to it?
Well, I have to say, I mean, I agree with Ben on what Tony Blair did by wanting to have 50% of children going to university and completely forgot the other 50%. And we've always had a problem in this country, which I think is deeply rooted in snobbery, where we've never had the proper respect and regard for people who are skilled, whether they're electricians or builders or hairdressers or care workers or anything. They're always at the bottom of the pile. And I think that's been endemic, that we've never valued that. And I think, you know, what Ben says about getting rid of polytechnics and the old technical schools was a terrible mistake because they weren't replaced with anything. So you end up with people going to schools and coming out having done, you know, some sort of half-assed GCSE and
bottomed. Sorry, everybody.
One-cheeked. Shall we say it like that?
I was impressed, Jo. I was going to come in right behind you.
Well, one buttock idea of, you know, a little bit of business studies, a little bit of this, that, and the other, and not doing things. So I think apprenticeships are a really good thing. And there have been various incarnations of this, as Ben knows. Some of them have been accused by employers of being so cumbersome and so red tape heavy that they're almost impossible to work. And the other thing is the abuse of it, which has happened particularly in the bigger organisations, where instead of going and getting young people in, that they've used it to retrain older people within their own organisation.
Yeah, but you can do that. And
yes,
this is a misunderstanding about apprenticeships is people think it's just for young kids entering the world of work for the first time, and it isn't. There's no age limit. And I think that's brilliant because loads of people, loads of viewers will be watching and they've been perhaps, I don't know, made redundant or whatever, and they find themselves in a situation where they need to reskill. And ageism, I do believe ageism is still a thing in the world of work, and I applaud actually that employers do take that money and do apply it to older workers to help them.
Yes, but not if they're already in an organisation. I mean, it should be for new people, whether they're old or young.
Unemployed people, you mean?
Well, unemployed or newly entering the jobs market at whatever age. No,
why? If you've got an entry-level role in an organisation, why shouldn't you be able to get access to skills, training and so on and so forth to progress yourself?
Well, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I think where there has been abuse is where an organisation, and this has been particularly prevalent, I understand, in the public sector, where they've taken the money, so they haven't actually employed any new person or trained a new person. So they've taken the money on top of, you know, the person they've already got.
And I guess the flip side, and I know many people will have experienced this themselves as well, lots of organisations took this money and take this money. They employ young people on an apprenticeship wage to do, you know, menial jobs, but then they don't support it with the right amount of training.
Yeah, exactly.
They try and do whatever it is at a minimal level to tick the box to get this cash.
Yeah.
And actually what that young person ends up with is not a lot, really.
No, I mean, actually, what we do need is formal training in skills, in genuine skills.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is, I mean, if this works, I think it's a good thing. And the fact that they're bringing in the chap from the Co-op, Richard Pennycook, you know, and bringing in other people, it might pull together, you know, some of the good bits from previous schemes and look at some of the things that didn't.
In Singapore, there's a great scheme, and it's something like all residents get, I don't know how much it is, I'll say £500, but I don't know the exact sum. So you all get an amount of money, and you can use it to skill yourself, skills credits or something they're called. So you all have pots of money that you can access to develop and advance yourself as an individual. And I think that's absolutely
well, I mean, Singapore
fabulous.
has got so much right. You know, it runs a fantastic economy. I'm not sure I completely buy into their politics, but the way that they run themselves as an economy is phenomenal.
So do you think then that this will go somewhere in terms of trying to reduce the levels of legal migration? Because that is a question that many people will be wondering
Well, it's critical,
about.
but I come back to the holistic approach. You know, if it's very cumbersome, if, for example, we continue with this precautionary principle, highly regulated environment in which we operate, and you can only practice as a sole practitioner if you've got insurance, if you meet all the health and safety standards, if you you have to report on your own carbon footprint when you do your job. I sent you something by email, by text today on carbon footprints and stuff. You know, if that's the kind of burdensome economic environment that this Labour Party is going to go on championing, then no amount of repurposing people, giving them skill sets they need to do this great sort of artisan stuff is going to work, because they won't be able to afford to do it. You've got to reform the tax system, you've got to get rid of VAT, you've got to deregulate, you've got to liberate SMEs. And this was one of the things about Brexit, was to get rid of the EU so that we could deregulate, champion 96% of businesses in this country by number are small and medium-sized enterprises.
Well, I mean, if you make it easier and more attractive for businesses, then that's a good thing. But the other thing that needs to be examined is, where is the old day release? You know, there is a point you can learn an awful lot on the job, but at some point you maybe have to go into a workshop, you know, whether it's to learn welding or bricklaying or hairdressing. You can't do it all on the job. And so many further education and technical colleges have cut those courses or just simply don't offer them, that it makes it quite difficult. And so I think, just very quickly, the point that Keir Starmer makes about what is needed regionally or locally is really, really good. And you can see that already beginning to work with the regional mayors.
He's talking the talk.
Yeah, but
it's whether they walk the walk.
Well, you know, if you need a lot of builders on Teesside, then it makes sense to be offering those sort of things. If you need a lot of care workers in Manchester...
But do you not agree, Jo, that in isolation it's not going to solve the problem?
No, it's got to be joined up, because it's other things, like, as Michelle touched on, you know, an apprenticeship wage is £5 an hour.
Lots of you are getting in touch about this. Hazel said, I've contacted you many times about this. She says, our grandson finished his apprenticeship. He's now a qualified bricklayer with all of his certificates and whatnot. She says he cannot get a job there at many building sites. She reckons that the building sites where they live, they only want to employ foreign workers because they're cheaper. Is that your experience at home? Get in touch and tell me your thoughts. Lee says, Michelle, I've got some friends that have got 16-year-old children. They're not interested in going to college. They're not very academic. They don't want to go on and continue that path. They just want to work, he says. But unless they do an apprenticeship, they don't seem to be able to do it. Rob, you said you've got an idea. How about if anyone that's currently on benefits enters the world of work, they should have a period of paying lower tax? What do you think to that? Quickly.
I think it's great. I think so much can be done to incentivise different behaviour, positive behaviour, through the taxation system, and we just don't do it enough. We use the government uses the taxation system effectively to punish us.
But you can, you know, there's lots of things you can do, incentives like transport. If you're only earning apprenticeship wages, you can't afford the cost of.
Can I just quickly finish? You know, there's been a debate on the Albert Memorial and whether or not it's an offence to. You look at the skill required to create the Albert Memorial. It is phenomenal. And we talk about being a poorer society today in economic and monetary terms. We are a poor society altogether. What they could do 200 years ago, in many respects, belittles what we can do now. That's how hollowed out we've become.
There you go. And I think, you know, one of the most important... I'm going to sound like an old grandma now, but one of the most important things I think we could do with teaching young kids is all about the benefits of delayed gratification, because actually you can take an apprenticeship or something at a lower wage today. Yes, you know what, you might earn a little bit less than your peers, your friends at the moment in time, but what you can then achieve later on in life can far surpass some of your mates. But the problem is, so many young people, they just want instant gratification, don't they? Anyway, what are you doing on August the 26th?
I'm going to try and get some instant gratification.
Crikey! Well, OK.
Lord, before the watershed.
The reason that I'm asking all of you, Alex, send it all up to you guys as well, what you're doing on August the 26th, because there was an appeal out that really caught my eye. There is a thing, believe it or not, everybody, called the World Gravy Wrestling Championships, right? Well, they're appealing for candidates, everyone. It's the 26th of August. It's at a pub in Lancashire. I absolutely love this. Who would have thought it was a thing? It's a 2-minute bout. You get into a paddling pool. You can be in fancy dress if you want. You wrestle your opponents. And you get the glory. Look at that, a vat of gravy going on.
There is no gratification in that.
No, I think you're busy. I've just looked at your diary, Ben. You're not available.
Oh, Postman Pat just stacked it. I think this is absolutely fabulous.
I was in Blackpool once for a party conference many years ago and was astonished to stand behind a lady in a queue at the fish and chip shop who asked for a gravy sandwich.
A gravy sandwich? Oh, goodness me, that's a whole different level of wrong. And by the way, the gravy in that paddling pool, I have issue with that. Did you see how runny it is? That's not gravy, that's brown water. Anyway, look, I want to talk to you after the break. Antisocial behaviour. There's a great plan putting into place in Grimsby. You won't believe it. I'll tell you what it is in 2.
Good evening. Here's your latest GB News weather forecast coming to you from the Met Office. For many, tomorrow looks like it's going to be a bit drier and a bit sunnier with that too. That being said, there will be some showery rain around. Most of today's showers are clearing away towards the east as we go overnight, but there is another system coming into the west and the southwest, and we are going to see further outbreaks of rain, which could be heavy, pushing across parts of Wales and also southwest England as we go overnight. Elsewhere, apart from a few showers towards the east-northeast, it's going to be largely dry and there will be some clear skies around, but for many, another warm night. Temperatures, particularly in the towns and cities, holding up in the mid-teens Celsius. Some outbreaks of rain then first thing could be quite heavy across some southern parts first of all, originally around central southern parts, but the heavier bursts are going to push their way eastwards through the morning before clearing away. Elsewhere across much of England and Wales, a few showery bursts, but also some decent bright sunny weather first thing. Largely fine and sunny across Northern Ireland and many parts of northern England. Across Scotland, a bit of a westy split. Around eastern areas, it's going to be a bit cloudier, a few outbreaks of rain here, likely to be dry, brighter across more central and western parts of Scotland. Through the day then, we are going to see a scattering of showers here or there. Many places will actually avoid the showers and stay largely dry, but a few showers are possible and they could be a little bit on the heavy side, though I'm not expecting any thunder like we've seen through today. With a bit more sunshine around, temperatures are going to be a bit higher than they have been lately. Temperatures reaching highs of around 24, 25 Celsius, possibly even 26 Celsius. Any showers will die out as we go through tomorrow night into Wednesday, and Wednesday looks like it will start mostly dry. We can expect some showery rain pushing its way through across parts of Scotland and perhaps some showers kicking off over eastern parts of England, but elsewhere it's looking largely fine yet again before some very wet weather pushes in, particularly across southern parts as we go through Thursday. See you later.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm John Vincent. Long delays on the M1 in West Yorkshire due to an earlier police incident between junction 40 Ossett and 41 Cargate. The motorway was closed for an hour and 50 minutes, although all lanes now open. Long delays on the M6 southbound in Lancashire. It's closed for an accident between junction 33 Lancaster South and 32 the Broughton interchange. Queue in traffic on the M60 clockwise in Manchester between junction 10 the Trafford Centre and 13 for Worsley. Slow traffic on the M42 southbound in Staffordshire due to a broken down vehicle and fuel spillage at junction 10 for Tamworth. Queues on the M25 anti-clockwise in Surrey just before junction 12 the M3, and the M25 anti-clockwise in Kent also struggling at the Dartford tunnels. Estimated travel time 15 minutes. And that's the latest traffic and travel news.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Hi there, Michelle Dewberry, till 7, Joe Phillips and Ben Habib remain alongside me. Before the break, I was appealing for contestants for the Gravy Wrestling Championship. It was a serious appeal, by the way, because they're lacking contestants. I think I fixed it during the break there. Ben Habib, Nigel Farage in a paddling pool of vat gravy. We'll soon thrash it all out. We'll soon fix it all.
On GB
We'll do pay-per-view on GB News.
Yes,
That'll get the
absolutely.
viewers in, won't it? Right, look, let's talk anti-social behaviour. In Grimsby, they're going to trial a new system where every single 15 minutes they're going to blast over a speaker system into the streets. Grimsby rules, by which I just mean basically, you know, don't pedal on the pavement, don't ride on the pavement, whatever. Is this going to tackle antisocial behaviour, Ben Habib?
I mean, you know, having now stood in 2 elections this year and campaigned in the local elections, I can tell you the biggest problem the electorate have is not people cycling in inappropriate lanes and so on. It's almost dystopian listening to what they're planning in Grimsby, because the real issues are knife crime is up, violent crime is up, syringes are being left all over the place, there's weed every 5 seconds, barber shops, vaping shops, all money laundering cash. These are the big issues.
Hang on, there'll be some barber shops and some vape shops that are not.
Well, let me tell you, in the 10-minute walk that I used to have from my hotel in Wellingborough to the gym, 10-minute walk, there were at least 10 barbershops. And there was...
Look at his hair, look.
I know, it's all beautifully
There you go,
coiffed
that's
forward,
why
isn't it?
he's got such a good quiff going on there. Carry on, sorry.
And they're all fronts for effectively...
You can't say that.
Well, the very significant number are not entirely legitimate.
Perhaps.
OK, not perhaps. There's just no way they can be all deployed usefully, cutting people's hair in Wellingborough. It's just not possible. And these are the issues.
I don't know men's hair. I don't know the quality
I
density
think
of men's
we
hair
need to send an investigative reporter.
But these are the issues people want dealt with in terms of, you know, the criminal justice system. It's not...
I definitely agree with you, by the way. There definitely will be a lot of that going on. I just need to clarify that not all of those shops are doing that.
Perhaps I'm, you know, going to the extreme in order to exemplify the point. But that's what people want dealt with. It's not someone transgressing out of their cycle lane into a pedestrian area. But, you know... I mean, that's a pain in the neck. But it's dystopian to have that played at you non-stop on a speaker.
Is it?
I think that antisocial behaviour is the thin end of the wedge, and it is in many, many areas, because it's that, you know, the litter that doesn't get picked up, the litter that doesn't get put in the bins, the disregard for notices, whether it's about cycling on pavements or whatever it is. You know, lots of local authorities have got lots of powers that they don't enforce, either because they haven't got the people to do it, or they're not minded to do it, and they can do on-the-spot fines for all sorts of things. The idea of having a message being broadcast every 15 minutes would frankly make me want to rip out the speakers and shove them somewhere where you'll never hear them again, except with perhaps an echo. And I think, you know, whether that works or not, I don't think so. I think it'll just annoy people. And it has got a sort of a sense of Big Brother about it. I mean, there are schemes that have been tried in the past. Do it in quite a lot of shopping centres, classical music, for instance, that sort of thing. Anything that slightly sort of lowers the temperature. But, you know, you don't see this sort of antisocial behaviour.
Sheila makes a good point on the website.
Oh, go on.
She goes, Michelle, can I just ask, how many languages are they going to make these announcements in?
That's a good point.
That is a very good point, Sheila. A very good point. I think they'll come a bit unstuck with some of that. But anyway, they'll probably have to... Anyway, don't even get me started off. Go on, carry on, Joe.
No, I just think, you know, you don't see the same levels of antisocial behaviour in towns and cities around Europe quite so much. And I think part of that is because more people live in cities and town centres. They're not so hollowed out because of the death of retail. And I think, you know, one of the things that this government could be doing when they want to build new houses, more houses, is converting retail
Oh, my
premises.
goodness, I so agree with you. They've turned their backs. They've turned their backs on town centres.
Yeah.
And if you bring life back to the town centre, you bring security back to the town centre.
You cut crime instead of having these dead areas. So, you know, can we have that as a clip?
Well, I just get used to agreeing. Look, I do want to just speak out in defence of these speaker systems, because actually I think what we could do with a bit more in society is a bit of public shaming. If people were actually made to feel ashamed of some of their antics, then perhaps, just maybe, and this is a trial, don't forget, then just maybe people might actually think twice about some of what they're doing. For my sins, I had to get on the London Underground today, right? And as I was walking, you know, through the tunnels, there was an announcement calling calling for the British Transport Police to attend Platform 7 or whatever, and it was saying a pickpocketer was in operation. And I thought to myself, why aren't you saying, and for anyone on Platform 7, it is the fella in the yellow jacket with the blue jeans and the brown hair, and he is taking things out of your... Why don't you name and shame that guy, get some attention brought on him, and then people might pack it in. He's not looking very convinced at me. He thinks it's quite dystopian. What do you guys think to it all at home? Us citizens, do you think we need to be more involved in the politics of our nations? One report today calls for more things like citizens' assemblies. Your thoughts on that? I'll see you in 2.
Patrick Christie's Tonight. Weekdays from 9 p.m.
Should Prince Harry have accepted an award named after a US war hero at a glitzy ceremony last night? People begged him not to, but he did it anyway. It's time for tonight's head-to-head. Well, Prince Harry paid tribute to the eternal bond between mother and son as he appeared alongside his wife, Meghan Markle, at the glitzy ESPY Awards, dubbed the Sporting Oscars last night. The Duke accepted the Pat Tillman Award, named after a US war hero, for his Invictus Games work. But Harry's decision to accept the award was shrouded in controversy after more than 76,000 people signed a petition demanding he reverse his decision. Well, speaking last night, Harry paid tribute to Pat Tillman's mother, Mary. But that comes after Mary Tillman slammed his decision to give Prince Harry the gong, saying, "I am shocked as to why they would select such a controversial and divisive individual to receive the award. There are recipients that are far more fitting. These individuals do not have the money, resources, connections or privilege that Prince Harry has." So tonight I'm asking, should Harry have actually accepted the award? Let me know your thoughts. Go to gbnews.com/your say. Tweet me at GBNews and make sure you take part in our poll. But going head-to-head on this now, a former royal butler, Grant Harold, and the journalist and broadcaster, Laurie Turner. Thank you very much. Great to have you both on the show. Laurie, I will start with you. I mean, the mother didn't want Harry to have it, but he did it anyway. What do you think?
I just think it's incredibly tone deaf. He seems to have an amazing ability to not read the room. It wasn't like this was a surprise because the opposition to him getting this award had been growing. So he had the chance to say, actually, I hear what you're saying. I'm not going to accept the award. But he didn't.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us. Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions.
That raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return.
And a few surprises along the way.
Might be cold in this studio.
That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9 only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, Michelle Dewberry, Till 7 political commentator Joe Phillips and former Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Ben Habib, alongside me. I think I've started something now, talking about those speaker systems and public shaming. Francis says, bring back the stocks. Other people say, what about chucking rotten tomatoes at people? I'm not sure I'd go that far.
Or gravy. We put them in stocks and chuck gravy at them.
I just think there are too many people in society that have no shame when it comes to behaving appallingly. Did you see that fella? I think it was Greg's or something the other day. He's just emptying fridge loads of food into carrier bags. He don't care who sees him. He don't care about getting into trouble. I think it's appalling. I'd love to be a store detective for a day because I would. I'd get my speaker system. I'd make the announcements. You on aisle 7. I can see what you're doing. You're being filmed. But maybe I'm going too far. Rob says, Michelle, you do realise that in North Korea they have the kind of speaker systems that you are advocating. And what's the kind of crime rates there? You tell me. Look, let's let's talk about citizens and how involved we should be when it comes to politics, because now a think tank, Demos, has been writing a report saying that basically a new era of public participation in policy making needs to happen. I don't like what they then go on to say, because then they start with these silly lines like, oh, it's all about tackling populism and all the rest of it. People are not so-called populist because they're not involved in politics. People are so-called populist, i.e. wanting to control borders, because nobody in government is listening to them with the policies that they keep introducing. But anyway, do we need citizens' assemblies, Ben Habib?
I'm reluctant. You know, there's always this desire to muck around with the way our system works, and I'm reluctant to have any knee-jerk reactions, particularly at the moment for the United Kingdom, because we're only just partially recovering our independence from the EU. We haven't fully got it yet. The fight continues, but we're only partially recovering it, and I think we've got to give our institutions time to, you know, for example, Parliament needs time to cease being a district council, which is how it behaves at best, and start making decisions for the national interest and, you know, putting the country first and, you know, quaint things like that. And I want to give the systems that took hundreds of years to develop into where we are now an opportunity to reset themselves and to come to terms with the newfound independence that we have as a country before we just start doing wholesale reforms and, you know, anything, frankly, coming out of the Labour Party or anything associated with the Labour Party I hold with great distrust. You know, when they call it a reform to our system, it tends to, in my view, given Tony Blair's legacy, damage us.
I don't think it's a reform. It's an add-on, it's an adjunct. And I think, you know, citizens' assemblies or citizen engagement is not a new idea. It has been used quite successfully. It was used in Ireland very successfully before they had the referendum on abortion. And I have, when I've worked with local authorities, have worked with citizens' assemblies on very contentious planning issues. And they're quite useful because it allows people to have conversations that they wouldn't have otherwise. It stops that polarisation. So if you don't want that building development there because you've always caught the bus from there for the last 300 years, I can say to you, yes, that's fine. But if we don't move that, then we can't have this green area.
But we have systems for all of that.
Well, we do have systems, but I think, you know, the problem is that people are disillusioned for understandable reasons. And if you can bring back people's faith in the democratic process at local level, that's got to be healthy for democracy. I mean, the turnout was really low in this last general election, as you know. And if you can re-engage people, instead of people getting so angry and so irate about stuff and not being willing to get involved and have a conversation, I think it would go some way.
No, but, you know, the reason the turnout was low, it's a really important point. The reason the turnout was low is because we've had a series of elections where promises have been made both by the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, and then they haven't fulfilled them. We have had a parliament, at least since 2016, that has stood in contempt of the people, refusing to do what the people want. We had a plebiscite which voted to leave the EU, and we had to.
That's my point.
We had to drag Parliament kicking and screaming.
So if you get people involved at local level, they can hold people to account.
They were given a voice, and they were ignored.
What do you make to it all? Because that is indeed the situation. You can involve citizens all you like, but if you completely ignore their suggestions, it doesn't end well, does it? A couple of people are getting in touch on the website about these citizens' assemblies. You mentioned them in Ireland. There's a lot of concern about how those people would be perhaps selected to be on those assemblies. That's how unbiased would they be? That's a question that many of you are asking. Dave says that they wouldn't be able to handle a citizens' meeting, Michelle, these politicians, because they're too far out of touch with reality. They're worried only about their bank balances, he said. GB News member on the website, Phoebe, thanks for that, Phoebe. You've got in touch and you're saying, never mind blasting out, you know, rules and regulations. Why don't they blast out classical music on speakers? That might resolve some of the problems.
Well, they have used
that's not a bad idea, actually. Wayne, also a GB News member, thanks, Wayne. You've got in touch and saying you like the idea of shaming people. You could have a large screen in the town centre and we could have continuous endless loops of people, like a rogue gallery, basically. Obviously, he says, uploaded to social media sites to make sure that no one misses out on the opportunity to observe the antics of the brain dead, he says. But Samantha, she's got in touch and said, Michelle, you're talking about shaming people that essentially have no shame. Oh, well, there you go. Look, that's all I've got time for. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I love the sounds of a rogue gallery. I could do a spot, couldn't I, on Dewbs and Co? There's an idea. Anyway, look, I've got to go for the evening. Don't go anywhere, though, because Martin Daubney up next. Night.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar.